Hello, friends. You're watching The Night Watchman, where every day you'll hear a brand new horror story that will send chills down your spine. But to keep bringing you these terrifying tales, we need your love and support. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Now let's begin the story. I never thought working part-time at a fast food joint would become the most defining and horrifying chapter of my life. But back then, I didn't have many options. I was a broke sophomore at Red Oak Community College, scraping by on scholarship money and whatever was left in my savings from high school. My mom lived 2 hours away in Brimford, juggling two jobs, and I refused to add another burden to her plate. So I picked up whatever work I could find, and the only place hiring for closing shifts was the KFC on Walnut Drive, just off the highway. At first, I didn't mind it. The pay was decent, the hours worked with my class schedule, and the manager, Mr. Hansen, always made jokes about how he couldn't find anyone else brave enough to deal with the dinner rush. I'd pretend to laugh, but truth was, the place smelled like fryer oil and raw poultry, no matter how many times you cleaned it. Still, it paid for textbooks and rent, so I kept showing up. Most nights our closing crew was small, just me, a quiet dishwasher named Liam, and a guy who trained a few weeks after me named Evan. He was tall, a little awkward, but funny in a dry sort of way. We bonded over late-night restocks and trying to rescue overfried chicken pieces from the fryer before they started resembling meteorites. The perk of the closing shift was always the same: leftovers. Whatever wasn't sold by 11:30 p.m. was fair game. And when you're broke, free food is a language your stomach understands even when your brain doesn't want more greasy chicken. I ate that stuff every night without question, until everything changed. It was a Thursday night, slow, humid, the kind of night where the whole world felt tired. I had just dropped a load of drumsticks into the fryer when I noticed the seasoning bag looked different. The usual bags had small printed labels with dates. This one had a faint yellow tint, and the label looked like it had been peeled off and reattached. I remember calling out to Evan, who was scrubbing the prep counter. "Hey, did Hanson say anything about getting new spice mixes?" He glanced up. "No. Why? Something wrong?" "I don't know. This one looks weird." He shrugged. "Maybe corporate sent something new. They're always changing formulas." I let it go. I shouldn't have. We cooked the batch, served the late customers, and divided the leftover thighs and tenders into boxes to take home. Mine was still warm when I got to my apartment, a small one-bedroom on the east end of Red Oak, where the walls were thin and the neighbors were loud. I sat in front of the TV, opened the box and took a bite, and instantly froze. The chicken tasted wrong, not spoiled, not rotten, just wrong. There was an odd floral sweetness, followed by a sharp, bitter punch that made the back of my tongue tingle and go numb. I spit the rest into the napkin. "What the hell?" I took another tiny bite, just to confirm, and the same unsettling numbness spread across my gums. I tossed the whole box out into the apartment dumpster. Free food wasn't worth getting food poisoning. When I clocked in Friday evening, Evan was already at the fryer, looking pale. "You okay?" I asked, tying my apron. "I ate some of the leftovers last night," he said quietly. "Did it taste weird to you?" "Yeah," I said, "really weird." He let out a breath. "Thought I was imagining it. I got sick, not puking, just felt messed up." "What did Hanson say?" "I told him the spice mix tasted off. He checked the shipment logs and told me the mix was perfectly fine and that I shouldn't waste time worrying." Typical Hanson. We brushed it off and got to work, but the smell in the kitchen was different that night. Stronger, sharper, like the spices were burning through the oil. We served dozens of customers that night, and not a single one complained. In fact, they seemed to enjoy it. One regular, a construction worker named Dale, who usually ordered a two-piece meal, came in 3 separate times and left with a full family bucket each visit. When I locked up, I noticed something chilling. There were no leftovers at all. The chicken was selling faster than we could cook it. By Monday, things got worse. Our customers, many of whom were familiar faces, started showing up daily, sometimes twice in one day. They ordered more and more chicken each time. A few looked different. Their skin was pale, almost translucent. Their eyes were red and unfocused. Some had small, irritated sores along their necks and arms. One woman, Mrs. Langley, who usually chatted about her grandchildren, didn't say a single word when she ordered. She just stared at the menu, twitching, her fingers tapping the counter in jittery, frantic bursts. When I handed her the bucket, she grabbed it with both hands like it was something precious. Evan whispered to me, "This is getting weird." I nodded. "Yeah. Have you seen how much they're eating? And how they look?" We didn't report it. We should have. It was a stormy Wednesday. Wind rattled the drive-through windows, and the power flickered twice before settling. The restaurant was packed, every table full, every customer the same pale, twitching version of themselves. Halfway through the shift, Evan came rushing in from the stockroom. "We're out," he hissed. "Out of chicken. Completely." "What? We ordered double this week." "I know, it's gone." I went to tell Mr. Hansen, who stood near the counter overseeing orders. Before I could speak, a man at the counter, Dale, slammed his fist down. "Bucket. Now, I'm sorry, sir," I said carefully. "We're out of chicken for the night." His eyes widened, bloodshot and furious. "Don't lie to me. I need it. I need it." "Sir, please calm do." He lunged across the counter. Screams erupted behind him as other customers began shoving, grabbing at each other's bags and buckets of food. A woman clutched her bucket to her chest, and another customer, a teenager, bit her forearm so hard she shrieked and dropped it. Then it was pure chaos. People attacking each other like wild animals, nails digging into flesh, teeth tearing at arms and faces, just to steal a single piece of fried chicken. "Back room," Evan yelled. We ran into the kitchen, slammed the door, and pushed a prep table in front of it. The metal rattled as bodies slammed against the other side. Liam was hyperventilating. "What's happening? What's wrong with them?" Before I could answer, the back door burst open. We all spun around. But it was Mr. Hansen, drenched in sweat, holding a duffel bag. He froze when he saw us. "What's in the bag?" Evan demanded. Hansen's eyes twitched. "Nothing that concerns you." Evan stepped forward. "What did you put in the seasoning?" Hansen swallowed hard. "It wasn't supposed to go this far. It was a stimulant, just a little boost. Corporate wasn't paying us enough to stay afloat." "You drug people?" I screamed. He backed away. "It was supposed to increase traffic, not turn them into this," Evan shouted, pointing toward the pounding door. Hansen made a run for the emergency exit. "Hey, stop!" I yelled, but he didn't. He vanished into the night, leaving us behind. 10 minutes later, the police arrived and tased, restrained, or sedated everyone who was still conscious. The investigation lasted weeks. They found traces of a powerful synthetic stimulant mixed into the chicken coating, strong enough to create extreme dependency, withdrawal, aggression, and hallucinations. Every customer who'd eaten from those last few batches tested positive. Mr. Hansen never returned. Not a trace of him. Evan and I both gave statements, and the KFC was shut down permanently, but guilt stayed. One night, as I sat with Evan on a bench outside the now-abandoned KFC, he said softly, "You know it's not our fault, right?" I stared at the empty building. At some point, we knew something was wrong. He didn't argue. He didn't have to, because deep down, we both wondered the same thing. If we had spoken up sooner, how many people could we have saved? Story 2. I never planned on stopping in the town of Eaton Ridge, Nebraska, but long drives have a funny way of forcing decisions on you. I was halfway through a 6-hour trip to visit my parents, first time I'd seen them in over a year, and I wanted to reach their house before sundown. It had been a messy year, a layoff, a bad breakup, and months of living alone in a small studio apartment that smelled like paint thinner from the warehouse below it. So visiting my parents felt necessary, like I needed to be reminded that normal still existed somewhere. By 2:30 p.m., though, hunger hit hard, the kind of hunger that made my stomach feel hollow and sharp at the same time. I told myself I'd only stop for 10 minutes, just enough to grab something quick, stretch my legs, and get moving again. That's how I ended up pulling off Highway 76, exit 47, into a faded little KFC surrounded by miles of dry cornfields and nothing else. The parking lot was empty. The sign flickered like the bulbs were dying one by one. I should have taken the hint. But hunger won. Inside, the place was almost too quiet, like someone had forgotten to turn on the music. An older woman stood behind the counter, small gray hair pinned back neatly, her name tag reading Linda. She had that warm, Midwestern grandmother smile that somehow made me feel guilty for walking in. "Well, hey there, sweetheart," she said. "Haven't had a soul walk in for over an hour. Storm must be keeping people home." I glanced out the window. Dark clouds were crawling across the sky like bruises spreading. "Great. Just some chicken tenders and a Pepsi," I said. "You got it. Might take a minute, hun. I'm back here running this whole place by my lonesome." She winked. "Hope you ain't in a rush." "I'm trying not to be." She laughed softly and disappeared into the kitchen. I sat in a booth facing the highway. The window was big, giving me a wide view of the cornfield swaying beneath the heavy sky. Thunder rumbled in the distance, low and long, like something waking up. For a few seconds, everything felt peaceful. Then headlights swept across the window. A long, black limo pulled into the lot and stopped right in front of the entrance. My eyebrows lifted. A limo? Here? The nearest town was 15 miles away, and this wasn't exactly wedding reception territory. The driver's door swung open. A woman stepped out. Not just any woman, a bride. A full wedding dress, lace sleeves, a long train dragging along the concrete, and her hair piled up with pearls. But her appearance wasn't the strangest part. Her mascara was smeared all the way down her cheeks, like she'd been crying for hours. She looked at me through the glass before she even walked in. Right at me, and she smiled. Not a joyful smile. A smile that felt wrong, like it didn't match her eyes. When she stepped inside, the air in the restaurant seemed to shift. Her dress left faint red smudges wherever it dragged. I thought it was dirt at first. She walked directly up to my booth. "Can I sit with you?" she asked softly. Sure." She sat opposite me, folding her gloved hands on the table. The gloves, that's when I noticed the reddish stains weren't just on her dress. They were speckled across the white fabric like freckles. Up close, she was beautiful, fragile and porcelain-like, but her eyes were wide, glassy, as if she hadn't blinked in a long time. "I'm Marissa," she said. "And you are?" "Dylan," I replied. She nodded slowly. "Dylan, you have a kind face." "Thanks." Her gaze flicked down my body, then back to my eyes. "Are you attracted to me?" The question hit me so hard I almost spilled my drink. I have a girlfriend," I stammered. She tilted her head. That wasn't an answer. Before I could respond, she added, "My fiancé said he loved me. Said I was beautiful." A strange tremor moved through her jaw. "But he lied." I swallowed. "I'm sorry. That's awful." She leaned closer. "Do you think I'm hideous now?" Her voice cracked. "Be honest." "You're not hideous," I said carefully. "You've just had a rough day." She smiled again, wider this time. "You're sweet." He wasn't sweet. He was a terrible liar. The kitchen door swung open, and Linda appeared, carrying a tray of food. She looked surprised to see someone in a wedding dress sitting with me, but hid it well. "Well, don't you look lovely," Linda said cheerfully. Marissa's smile vanished. "We're talking," she said sharply. "Can you leave?" Linda froze, then forced a polite grin. "Sure thing, hun. Just holler if you need anything." She hurried back into the kitchen. When I looked back at the bride, she was staring at me again, harder. "You're not going to leave me too, are you?" she whispered. No," I said quickly. "I just need to grab something from my car. Hand sanitizer. I touched the gas pump earlier. Let me walk with you." She stood before I could say another word. Outside, the wind had picked up, blowing dust across the lot. As we walked, she slipped her arm through mine like a bride being escorted down the aisle. We passed her limo. The front fender was crushed inward. Deep dent, streaks of red smeared across the metal. I froze. She noticed. "That," she said casually, "used to be our best man." My breath caught. "Used to be." "He lied too." She tightened her grip on my arm. "They all lied." My pulse hammered. Her next words chilled me. "James is in the back. You can meet him if you want." "No," I said immediately. I think you deserve someone better." She stopped. Slowly, her lips curled upward. You're right. I do. I'll just grab my sanitizer, I said, gently slipping out of her hold. I walked quickly, trying not to run, to my car. My hands shook as I unlocked the door and climbed inside. I reached to close it, but she grabbed it. Her strength was shocking. You were going to leave me, she hissed. Marissa, please. She punched me square in the cheek. My vision flashed white. The keys slipped from my hand and hit the floor mat. You're just like him, she snarled. Just like him. She pulled herself into the car, climbing over me, one hand closing around my throat. Her face hovered inches from mine. Her eyes were huge, wild. You'll stay with me, she whispered. Forever. But then, boom! A deafening blast rang out behind her. Her body jerked. A hole blossomed in her stomach, staining the white dress a deep red. She let out a soft sigh and slumped sideways, landing across the seat. Standing behind her, gripping a shotgun with both trembling hands, was Linda. She looked smaller without the warm smile. Get back inside, sweetheart, she said, voice steady. Now! I scrambled out, gasping for air. We rushed inside. She locked the door behind us. Sit, she said firmly. You're shaking. I sat. She picked up the restaurant phone. Sheriff's office? Yeah, this is Linda Baxter over at the KFC off exit 47. I've got a situation. Her voice wavered just a little. A bride, she said quietly, covered in blood, attacked a customer. I had to stop her. She hung up and sat across from me. You okay, hun? Yeah, I think. She slid the tray of fresh chicken tenders toward me. You never did get to eat, she said softly. Might as well while we wait. There was a storm outside. There was a dead bride in the parking lot. And inside, a gentle gray-haired woman offered me warm food, like this was just another Wednesday. I don't know why, but I started crying. Maybe shock, maybe relief, maybe everything. Linda reached across and squeezed my hand. You're safe now, she whispered. But as thunder cracked and the wind howled against the glass, I couldn't shake the feeling that safety was a fragile thing, something that could be broken in an instant, just like people, just like promises, just like a bride on a lonely highway. Story 3, I never thought a fast food job could leave a scar deeper than any real tragedy in my life. But here I am years later, still waking up at night with the smell of fryer oil in my nose and the echo of footsteps coming toward me in an empty dining room. I was 20 when I worked at the KFC on Bristol Highway in Hawthorne, Tennessee, one of those lonely stretches of road between suburbs and forests, the kind of place truckers use for bathroom breaks and teenagers use for cheap food after football games. My dad had fallen sick around that time, leaving my mom to juggle bills by herself. So I picked up the closing shifts, less people, $1 more per hour, and free leftovers I brought home for my little brother Mason. I didn't mind the quiet. Most nights it was peaceful. I'd wipe down the counters, listen to music through one working earbud, and count the register while the kitchen hummed in the background. The store always smelled like hot oil and buttered biscuits, and somehow that made me feel safe, like things were under control. But all of that changed on a hot July night. The sun had just gone down when I clocked in. The sky outside the windows was a hazy orange, the kind that made the asphalt shine like a sheet of melted tar. Inside, the AC struggled as usual. I tugged my apron tighter and called out toward the back. Ralph, you here yet? Ralph was the night cook. Late 40s, soft-spoken, always humming old blues songs when he thought no one was listening. He'd been working there only a few weeks, but he treated the kitchen like sacred ground. I'm in here, Lucy, he shouted back. Chicken's already in the fryer. Should be an easy night. I smiled. Easy sounded great. By 8, the rush died down. A couple of families, 2 truck drivers, 1 elderly man who came every Thursday for a pot pie and a chat. Nothing unusual. Around 9:30, Ralph stepped out from the kitchen holding a tray of new tenders. You okay closing alone tonight? He asked. I do it all the time, I said. Besides, you'll be right here. He nodded, but there was a tiredness in his eyes I hadn't noticed before. You ever get a bad feeling for no reason? He asked quietly. I laughed. Every time Mason tries to make toast. I'm serious, kid. He leaned an elbow on the counter. Sometimes this place feels too empty. Before I could answer, the front door flung open hard enough to rattle the soda machine. Two boys walked in, both around 16, one tall and pale with sharp cheekbones and messy red hair. The other shorter, with long, greasy hair tied back in a loose bun and a sweatshirt far too warm for that weather. Their clothes were wrinkled, stained, and smelled faintly sour, like they had slept inside a dumpster or a bus station bathroom. They walked straight toward me, no hesitation. "Bucket of fried chicken?" the redhead said, voice cold. He slapped a 20 on the counter without breaking eye contact. "Sure," I said, forcing a smile. "You guys can grab a seat. I'll get your order started." Their smell lingered in the air like mildew and sweat. As they sat, they didn't stop staring, especially the one with the bun. His eyes followed every move I made, slow and unsettling, like he was memorizing the room. I slipped into the kitchen. "Ralph," I whispered, "we got two boys who look sketchy." He chuckled. "Please, I've worked years in Memphis. I can spot real trouble. These kids look like petty thieves at worst." "I don't know," I said. "Something's off about them." He gave me a reassuring pat on the shoulder. "I'll bring out the chicken. You keep an eye on them." When I walked back out, the boys weren't sitting. They were wandering the restaurant like they owned it, touching napkin dispensers, leaning over tables, poking the soda fountain buttons with dirty fingernails. The redhead paused beneath the security camera and looked up at it for a very long time. My stomach tightened. After a few minutes, they sat again. I focused on my paperwork, pretending I didn't feel those cold stares burning into me. The redhead, Jackson, I later heard the bun-haired boy whisper, was rambling about something I couldn't quite catch. The other boy, Liam, never said a word, but licked his cracked lips every time his eyes drifted to me. Suddenly, Liam got up and walked outside. I hesitated, then turned to Jackson. Where did your friend go?" Jackson grinned, showing teeth that looked slightly too sharp in the dim lights. "To take a leak. Don't worry about him." His tone made every hair on my arms rise. The minutes dragged. Ralph still hadn't brought the food. I waited, then waited more. Finally, worry overpowered hesitation. I walked into the kitchen. The room was dark, pitch dark, not a power outage, because I could see headlights from the highway shining through the small window by the sink. Someone had switched off the power inside the building. My pulse hammered. I fumbled for my phone. As the flashlight flickered on, my shoe slid on something warm and slick. "Ralph," I whispered, "please tell me you spilled something." But the metallic smell hit me before the truth did. Blood. A pool of it. I followed the thick trail upward and saw Ralph on the floor, a gash in his stomach so deep I could see gray tissue beneath the red. His eyes were open but lifeless. I staggered back and bumped into someone. I spun around. Jackson stood there, face expressionless, holding a knife dripping with Ralph's blood. He smiled. My scream barely left my throat. I turned and ran toward the back exit, but just as I reached it, Liam stepped in through the door, blocking it. His sweatshirt was splattered with blood. They had planned this. They had waited for the perfect moment. What do you want?" I said, voice shaking. Jackson clicked his tongue. "She's scared, Liam. Isn't that cute?" Liam stayed silent, but his grin widened. They herded me toward the front, knives glinting. "We want one thing," Jackson whispered in my ear. "The money." "That's it?" I cried. "You killed Ralph for money?" "No witnesses," he said casually. They shoved me hard against the counter. My forehead slammed into the edge. Pain exploded and blood ran down my cheek. My knees buckled. Liam finally spoke, voice trembling. "Jackson, maybe we should stop. I don't want to go to jail." Jackson snapped his head at him. "Shut up. We're already in this. Don't you dare chicken out." He slapped me across the face, splitting my lip. "Open the register," he snarled. "Now!" I pressed my shaking hand against my bleeding head. My vision blurred, but something inside me shifted, fear twisting into something sharper. My eyes drifted to my phone on the counter. The flashlight was still on, lighting up the room. They wanted the register. "Fine." I swallowed hard. The register's automated. I need the computer to open it. Jackson squinted at me. Don't get smart. It's true. The computer is connected to the register. I can't do it without power. They exchanged glances. Liam, Jackson ordered, go turn the power back on. Liam hesitated but obeyed. The lights flickered back on. Jackson shoved me toward the desk. Turn off the camera first. I could have faked it. Could have let them get recorded. But I wasn't letting them escape. Not after what they'd done to Ralph. I shut off the cameras for real, then opened the register. When Jackson leaned forward to grab the cash bag, I grabbed his hair with both hands and slammed his skull into the counter. A sickening crack filled the restaurant. His forehead split open instantly. Blood sprayed across the surface as he collapsed, twitching. I snatched my phone and spun around. Liam stood frozen in the doorway, eyes wide. You, he stuttered. You killed him! He bolted toward the exit. Perfect. He had to run past me to get there. As he reached the counter, I hurled a fistful of chili flakes, which I had snatched earlier when they held me in the dark, straight into his eyes. He screamed, clawing at his face. I lunged. We struggled, limbs thrashing, but adrenaline was a powerful weapon. I pinned him, grabbed his drop knife, and drove it into his chest. Once, twice, 3 times. His screaming stopped. I was shaking so hard I almost dropped the blade. But I forced myself to stand, forced myself to breathe, forced myself to finish what survival demanded. I closed the store, cleaned the blood, dragged both bodies to the basement. Only managers had the key, and Ralph never bothered to keep his on him. The incinerator was old, loud, but it worked. And the smoke vent led straight outside, blending with the usual kitchen fumes. By the time I called 911, I was already bruised, bleeding, and shaken enough to look like the perfect victim. The police reviewed the cameras, saw the boys walk in, saw them pacing, saw their dirty clothes and haunting eyes. They were quickly identified as escaped juvenile offenders from a facility 3 towns over. That night, the news said 2 teen criminals killed a KFC cook, tortured an employee, then fled with the cash. Liam and Jackson were added to the wanted list. Their families cried on TV, begging them to come home safely. I watched from my apartment, bandaged and holding a cup of cold tea that trembled in my hands. They would never be found. Only I knew where their ashes lay. I worked there for 2 more months. People pitied me. Co-workers brought cookies and cards. Customers told me I was so brave. Eventually, I left town, moved states, tried to rebuild my life. But that night, the night I learned what humans are capable of and what I myself am capable of, never left me. Everyone still believes I'm the victim, but the truth stays locked away in the rusted basement of that KFC on Bristol Highway, hidden in smoke and grease, and in the dead silence of the incinerator that swallowed 2 monsters whole. Story 4, I never imagined my life would circle back to fast food counters and fry oil, yet there I was, 27 years old, standing beneath the flickering red glow of a KFC sign on Highway 214 in Maple Crossing, Indiana, wondering how my life had folded into itself again. I had left this town when I was 19, desperate to escape the suffocating quiet and the memories of my brother's overdose. But months ago, after losing my warehouse job in Cincinnati, I came back, broke, exhausted, and carrying more guilt than I cared to admit. The only place that hired fast was this KFC. So I took the night shift. Fewer customers, less talking, more time to think. My co-worker, Evan Morales, was a 22-year-old college dropout with ADHD, fast hands, and a soft heart he tried to hide. He often told me, "Man, night shift is chill. Worst thing you'll see is a drunk guy wanting biscuits." But that night proved him wrong. By 11:15 p.m., the rain was punishing the parking lot. Sheets of water dragged across the windows like a curtain being pulled back and forth. The building hummed with loneliness. No orders, no customers, no sound beyond the fryer fan and the storm. I stood behind the counter, arms folded, staring at the puddles gathering beneath the streetlights. The rain made everything look distorted and far away. For some reason, nights like this made the memories worse. My brother, Michael, lying on his bedroom floor, my mother screaming his name over and over, the EMT saying they'd done all they could, me standing useless in the doorway. I closed my eyes and breathed slowly. The rain always brought me back there. Always. From the kitchen, I heard metal rattle. "Evan?" I called. He didn't answer. I frowned. He'd gone to the back to restock cups maybe 10 minutes earlier. Normally, he talked nonstop, humming or rapping under his breath. Tonight, silence. "Evan, you good?" I called again, louder. Still nothing. My chest tightened a little. Something about the quiet felt wrong. Not dangerous, just unnerving, like the building was holding its breath. I walked toward the back, but before I reached the doorway, a pair of headlights cut through the sheets of rain outside. A car rolled slowly into the lot. Not into a parking space, straight toward the front door. I stopped walking. It was an older model, black, dull, probably from the early 2000s. Its tires sliced through the puddles, water spraying everywhere. The sedan didn't hesitate, didn't look for parking. It crawled right up to the double-glass doors like the driver wanted to enter without stepping in the rain at all. Something in my chest sank. Nobody does that, not unless they're drunk, or angry, or scared. The engine cut. For a few seconds, nothing moved except the rain hammering the roof. Then the passenger door opened. A young woman stepped out, a redhead, maybe 20 at most. She wasn't just wet. She looked like she had been standing in the rain for hours. Clothes clinging to her, hair plastered against her face, skin pale. She held herself tightly, almost folded inward. When she saw me at the counter, she looked down instead of meeting my eyes. My stomach dropped. Something was wrong. Before I could speak, the driver's door opened. A tall, broad-shouldered man climbed out, maybe mid-30s, dark skin, heavy boots. The way he moved, slow, deliberate, made the hair rise on my arms. He looked at me through the glass with such stillness that I felt pinned in place. I swallowed and forced my voice to stay steady. "Sir, your car can't be right at the door. Could you please back it into a spot?" He stared at me. Then a smile spread over his face. Not a normal smile. A knowing one. A promise. He yanked open the door and stepped inside. Rain dripped off him in thick lines. "You," he said simply. "I'm gonna kill you." No anger, no shouting, just fact. Like he was telling me my order was ready. My entire body locked. For a second, I couldn't hold my own breath, but he continued casual. "Before that, though, you're gonna make us something to eat." He snapped his fingers at the dripping redhead. "Move." She flinched and stepped toward him. I didn't understand what was happening, why she was with him, why she looked so afraid. Until he grabbed a fistful of her hair, lifted it roughly, and with his other hand, pulled out a knife. Long, silver, sharp. I felt my throat close. In one smooth motion, he sliced off a handful of her hair. It fell to the wet floor in a dark, sad clump. The girl didn't scream. She didn't move. She just trembled. He threw the cut hair aside like trash. "Inside, both of you," he said. The girl obeyed. I backed toward the kitchen, legs shaking so badly I almost tripped. The rain outside suddenly felt louder than everything else, like the world was screaming at me to run, run, run. But I couldn't. He had the knife. He was bigger, and Evan was still somewhere in the back. "Don't be stupid," the man said as he followed me behind the counter. "Don't make me run in the rain again." His words puzzled me, but fear drowned everything else. My hands trembled as I reached for a spatula. It slipped from my grip and clattered to the floor. The man's expression hardened. "You women get stupider every year." My heart hammered so loudly I couldn't hear anything but his pulse. He stepped closer. One more step, and the knife would be within striking distance. I backed up, right into someone. Strong hands grabbed my arms. I screamed, but then I heard a familiar voice whisper sharply, "Get down." It was Evan. He had come from the back silently, a Rubik's Cube in his hand, his fidget toy, always in his pocket, always clicked around when he was nervous. He didn't hesitate. He swung it as hard as he could. The cube cracked against the man's skull with a sickening crunch. The man stumbled forward, hit the counter, then slammed headfirst into the glass display over the trays. The impact shook the entire structure. He dropped. Knife clattered. Rain pounded outside. Evan grabbed my arm. "Are you hurt? Jenna. Hey, are you okay?" I couldn't breathe. My vision tunneled. All I could think was he said he would kill me. The redhead girl stumbled toward us, sobbing uncontrollably. He said he'd kill me too. Please, please don't let him get up." "We won't," Evan said firmly. Just then, a police siren tore through the storm, growing louder by the second. Evan exhaled shakily. "Thank God. I called them before I came out. I saw him cut her hair. I knew—" He shook his head. "I knew he wasn't here for chicken." Two officers burst through the door, guns raised. The redhead shrieked and ducked behind me. "Hands where we can see them," one officer yelled. "He's down, on the floor," Evan shouted, pointing. The officers moved quickly, securing the man, rolling him over, cuffing him. He was still unconscious. One cop radioed for EMS. The other approached us. "You two okay?" I nodded, tears finally spilling. The adrenaline crash hit me hard enough that I almost collapsed. Evan caught me. The girl was shaking violently, clinging to my shirt. "He took me. He made me get in the car. He said... "It's okay," the officer said gently. "You're safe now." But she wasn't the only one who needed convincing. I looked at the unconscious man. His chest rose and fell. His face slack, peaceful even. A man who had promised my death 5 minutes earlier. And it hit me. How close I came to dying on the cold tile floor of a KFC. How close Evan came. How close that girl came. How random it all was. How rain, emptiness, and routine could turn into horror in seconds. I cried harder. Evan put a hand on my shoulder. "You did okay," he said softly. "You're alive." The police took our statements. EMS arrived. The girl was taken to an ambulance, wrapped in a blanket, still crying. When they carried the man out on a stretcher, he opened his eyes halfway. Just a sliver. And he looked right at me. The same calm stare from before. Like he still meant what he said. A chill tore through me. Hours later, after the cops left and the storm weakened, Evan and I sat together behind the counter. 2 cups of cold Pepsi between us, the restaurant still smelling faintly of danger. "You saved us," I said finally. "Nah," he muttered, rubbing the cracked Rubik's Cube. "I just did the thing I hoped someone would do for me." I looked out at the rain. For the first time in years, I didn't think about my brother. All I could think about was how close I came to being another memory someone else would try to run from. The rain slowed. The world looked real again. But I knew I'd never forget the man in the black sedan, or the way he said those words like they were nothing, or the feeling of being chosen at random for someone else's violence. And I knew one thing for certain: I would never work another night shift again. Story 5. I always thought guilt was something you could bury under routine. Long shifts, clattering fryers, the smell of breading mix stuck in your clothes. But I've learned over the years that guilt isn't dirt. It's water. It seeps through everything. Even now, 5 years later, I still wake up at 3 a.m., drenched in sweat, the same face haunting me like a photo burned into my eyelids. My name isn't really mine. Call me Noah. And what happened inside that KFC in Sycamore Springs, Missouri should have died with me. But I can't keep carrying this alone. Before all of this, KFC was my world. I started working there at 19, broke, confused about college, desperate for stability. My parents had split, my mom overloaded with bills, and I helped wherever I could. KFC was supposed to be temporary, a stepping stone. But comfort is a dangerous addiction. You get used to the rhythm, the beeps, the timers, the routine, and suddenly a decade passes and you're still there, wearing the same red shirt, convincing yourself it's enough. By my 12th year, I wasn't just comfortable, I was proud of what I'd built. Customers knew me. Regulars joked with me. I trained half the staff that came through those doors. And my manager, Mr. Halden, always told me, "You run this place better than anyone. Your time is coming, Noah." I believed him. That last week before my promotion, that's when everything snapped. There was this kid, Evan. 12 years old, skinny as a twig, with messy blonde hair and the kind of soft voice that made you lean in just to hear him. He'd come in almost every evening, always alone, always ordering the same $5 box. I'd sit with him sometimes after my shift, mostly because he looked like a kid who had no one. One night, he finally opened up. "Evan, my parents, they fight all the time. Sometimes they forget I'm even home." Me, "You shouldn't have to deal with that." Evan, "It's quieter here, and the food tastes better when you're not scared." That hit me harder than it should have. Maybe because I knew exactly what being a kid in a broken home felt like. Maybe because I saw too much of myself in him. But I didn't know that liking that kid, caring about him, would be the thing that destroyed me. It was a Thursday. Rain hammered the windows, making the whole dining room feel like a boxed-in cage. I was finishing the night shift with Evan, sitting at his usual table near the soda machine. That's when the door chimed. A man walked in, huge broad shoulders, dark hoodie, face shadowed. His presence felt wrong immediately, like walking into a room and smelling something dead. He didn't talk for a moment. He just stared at the menu board as if reading a language he'd never seen before. Then in a low, scraping voice, "Bucket meal, dark meat." His tone felt rehearsed. I rang him up, forced a smile, tried to ignore the way my stomach twisted. When I brought the order to his table, he spoke without lifting his face. "Are these the ones people lick their fingers over?" I let out a stiff laugh. Yeah, man. That's the slogan." He didn't smile, didn't even blink. He just whispered, "Good. I only eat the finger-licking ones." And he began eating slow, mechanical bites, never looking up. When he finally left, the tension left with him. Even Evan looked relieved. We didn't know then what kind of man he was. He came again the next night. Same order, same seat, same question. "Are these the ones?" His voice scraped across my nerves. Even the other staff noticed. By the fourth night, even the fry cook whispered to me, "That dude smells like metal and something else. Keep an eye on him." But I didn't know how to report bad vibes. And besides, promotion day was coming. I didn't want trouble. The night before I officially became manager, I remember the exact time, 11:42 p.m. The dining room was empty except for Evan. My last trash run of the night took me out the back door for maybe 60 seconds. When I came back, the dining room was empty. No Evan, no hooded man. The front door hadn't chimed. No one left. Something was wrong. And then I heard it. A squelching sound from the kitchen. A slow, wet rhythm, like someone kneading meat with bare hands. I stepped into the kitchen, heart pounding. There he was, the hooded man, standing at the stainless steel prep table, humming a song off-key while stirring something in the fryer. Me, "What the hell are you doing?" "Get out, you don't work here." Hooded man, without looking up. "Shift changed. I'm the night cook." My breath caught. Me, "No, customers aren't allowed. Don't touch anything. Step away from the fryer." He ignored me. Instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small jar, filled with something pale. He unscrewed it, and my stomach flipped. Inside were fingers, human fingers, small ones. He dropped one into the fryer. It hissed. The oil bubbled. The smell. God, the smell. Something sweet mixed with burnt protein. I staggered back. My heel caught on something soft. I looked down, and the world ended. Evan, lying on the floor, eyes open, hands butchered, his fingers gone. I screamed so loud my throat tore. Within seconds, someone rushed in. Mr. Halden, my manager, my mentor. Me, "Oh my God, Halden, call the police. He killed Evan, please." But he didn't look shocked. He didn't look angry. He lifted a finger to his lips. "Halden, shh, Noah, you don't want to scare him." My skin turned to ice. He walked over to the hooded man, calmly, and put a hand on his shoulder. "Halden, easy, Marcus. You're doing fine." Me, What? Marcus? Who is he?" Marcus finally removed his hood. His face was a patchwork of scars, burns, cuts, like a butcher's chopping board come alive. Halden spoke with a pride I couldn't understand. Halden, Noah, this is our night chef. Me, what? Halden, you ever wonder why our branch has the highest sales in the region? Why our chicken tastes better? I shook my head, barely breathing. Halden, fine wine improves food, but there's something else that adds a divine, unforgettable taste. Seasoned human fingers. My vision blurred. Me. You're feeding people. Human. Halden. God, no, we only cook them for us. Management. It's a tradition, Noah. Halden. To be promoted, you must taste the batch. Marcus held out a wing, fresh out of the fryer, glazed with a new seasoning I suddenly understood too well. I wanted to run, scream, fight, but Halden leaned close, whispering, "These are the responsibilities you asked for. You said you were ready." And something inside me broke. Whether it was fear, or the twisted hunger for the promotion I'd chased for years, or some sick, primal voice whispering that I could survive if I played along. I took the wing. I ate it. The flavor was unlike anything. Sweet, savory, wrong. And the moment I swallowed, I knew I had damned myself forever. I became the manager. For 5 years, I ignored every missing poster in Sycamore Springs, every parent crying in the parking lot, every news alert, because I knew where they'd gone. And every night, I saw Evan on the floor again. I'm not telling this for forgiveness, not for redemption. I'm telling it because I want the nightmares to stop, because I want to breathe again, even if for a moment. Because maybe confession is the only thing left I can control. If you ever eat at a place that tastes too good, if the seasoning feels addictive, unforgettable, leave. You have no idea what might be behind the fryer. Story 6. I never thought a part-time job at a fast food joint would be the thing that broke my life in half. But looking back, maybe I should have known nothing good ever comes from places that stay open past midnight. I was 20 back then, broke, exhausted, and studying nursing at a small community college in Ridgepoint, Missouri. Money was tight. My dad had been laid off after the manufacturing plant shut down, and my mom worked 2 jobs. I didn't want to add pressure by asking for help, so I picked up the only job that would take me with my messed up class schedule, closing shift at a KFC on Hawthorne Road. The hours were terrible. The pay was worse, but the free leftover food at the end of the night kept me alive. Literally. I was skipping meals just to save money, so whatever fried chicken we had left, I packed it into one of those flimsy cardboard boxes and took it home. And in the beginning, it was fine. Just boring, greasy work. But what happened later still keeps me awake. Still makes my stomach twist whenever I see a bucket of fried chicken. Still makes me wonder if any of this was my fault. One night, after a slow Thursday shift, I took home a box of chicken like usual. The cardboard was soaked through with grease, and the pieces were lukewarm by the time I sat down on my couch. I took one bite and froze. It tasted wrong. Too sweet. Not like sugar sweet, more like a bitter floral sweetness that lingered weirdly on my tongue. After a second bite, my tongue felt numb. I spat it out. Maybe the spice mix expired, I muttered to myself, but something in my gut didn't buy that. I'd eaten KFC every night for months. I knew the taste too well. This was different. I threw the box away and tried to forget about it. When I walked into work, I found Elias, my coworker, already leaning against the fryer. He was one of those tall, awkward guys with a big heart and no confidence to show for it. He glanced at me. "You notice anything weird with the chicken last night?" My head whipped toward him. "You tasted it too." "Yeah, it was, I don't know, sour, sweet, like someone dumped perfume in the batter." I nodded. "I didn't eat more than a bite." "Good call." I felt weird after it, lightheaded. "You think the spice mix is bad?" Elias shook his head. "I checked. Everything's in date. Manager says corporate just updated the blend." I frowned. Without telling anyone, Elias shrugged. "Wouldn't be the first time KFC does something stupid." We laughed it off, but something about the conversation stayed with me the rest of the shift. 3 days later, the restaurant was busier than I had ever seen it. And it wasn't normal busy, it was obsessive busy. Regular customers, people who usually came in once or twice a week, were suddenly showing up every single day, ordering way more than they ever had before. Buckets, barrels, enough food to feed families, but they were alone. One man I recognized, Mr. Delaney, a quiet mailman, came in with trembling hands. "One 12-piece bucket," he said, voice cracking. "You got it," I replied. "You okay, sir?" He stared at me with bloodshot eyes. "Just hungry." He slammed the bills onto the counter. His fingers were shaking. Elias whispered to me from behind the fryer, "Dude, that's the third time he's come in today." During my break, I looked around the dining room. Almost all the customers looked sick. Pale skin, red blotches, twitching hands, each one slurping down fried chicken like it was oxygen. Some didn't even wait for their food to cool. They bit into the steaming pieces, burning their mouths, not caring. Something was wrong, very wrong. It was a Saturday. College kids usually flooded the streets around Ridgepoint on weekends, but that night the entire crowd seemed packed inside our KFC. Everyone looked desperate, hungry. I had a knot in my stomach the entire shift. At around 10:45 p.m., Elias tapped my shoulder. "We're almost out," he said nervously. "Of chicken?" "Everything. We're down to the last 2 trays." He wasn't lying. The storage freezers were almost empty. By 11:15, the last batch went into the fryers. By 11:40, it was gone. At 11:42, the first customer realized it. A woman with cracked lips and shaking hands slammed her empty bucket onto the counter. "You're out?" she whispered. "I'm sorry, ma'am," I said gently. "We'll restock in the morning." Her eyes snapped up, bloodshot, wild. "No, no, you can't be out. I need it. I need it." Her scream echoed through the entire restaurant. Every customer stopped eating, all at once, like they shared one mind. Dozens of eyes turned toward the counter, toward me, toward the empty warming trays. My chest tightened. "Elias," I whispered. He swallowed. "Yeah? Call the manager." Our manager, Trent, came out from the back, smoothing his uniform like he was walking into a job interview instead of a riot. "What seems to be the problem?" he asked. The woman pointed at him with a shaking finger. "More chicken. Now." Trent stiffened. "We are out, ma'am. I apologize." She lunged over the counter. Elias screamed as Trent jumped back, knocking over the register. The woman crashed to the floor, but instead of getting up, she crawled on all fours toward the kitchen door. That was the moment someone in the dining room yelled, "They're lying! They're hiding more!" And the entire room erupted. People leapt from their seats, climbing over tables, shoving each other, clawing at the counter, screaming for chicken. One man grabbed another customer's arm and bit into it. Blood sprayed across the tiled floor. Elias grabbed my wrist. "We need to go. Now!" We ran through the kitchen, past the fryers, out the back door. Trent followed us, then stopped. "Wait!" he shouted. "I left something inside." "What?" I yelled, but he didn't answer. He turned and went back inside. The door shut. We heard screaming, then silence, then chewing. My stomach dropped. Elias whispered, horrified, "They're eating." "Don't," I said. "Don't say it." The police sirens didn't come for another 10 minutes. By then, the dining room windows were cracked. Bodies moved behind the glass. People fighting, clawing, collapsing, shaking on the floor. Some were eating chicken off the tiles. Some were eating other things. And Trent wasn't with us. The next morning, news vans surrounded the building. Police officers taped off the entrance. Paramedics rushed the surviving customers to the hospital, most restrained to stretchers, some unconscious, some convulsing, some still screaming for chicken. Elias and I gave our statements separately. "Did you notice any changes before yesterday?" One detective asked me. I hesitated but told him the truth. "The chicken started tasting different, sweeter, bitter aftertaste, made my mouth numb." The detective exchanged a look with the other officer. "What?" I asked. "We ran a preliminary field test on the spice mix," he said. "There are substances in it that shouldn't be there." "What kind of substances?" The other officer answered quietly. "Highly addictive ones." I felt my heart drop into my stomach. "You're saying the customers were addicted to our chicken?" We believe someone tampered with the spice mix shipments, the detective said. Someone inside the store, likely to boost sales. A cold chill ran through me. My voice shook. Trent, we can't find him, the detective replied. He wasn't in the building when we arrived. I remembered the sounds we heard, the chewing, the wet crunching. I forced myself not to throw up. He's gone, I whispered. Elias sat outside on the curb after our statements. His hands were shaking. I sat beside him. This isn't our fault, he said quietly. Yes, it is, I whispered. Noah, we didn't know. But we should have, I cut in. We tasted it. We knew something was wrong, and we kept serving it. He didn't argue. He just stared at the building, shattered windows, blood on the glass, abandoned trays on the floor inside. People trusted us, I said, voice cracking. We were the ones handing them the food. Elias rested a trembling hand on my shoulder. We can't change what happened, he whispered, but we can live with what we know. Can we? I still ask myself that every night. Sometimes I hear them, the customers screaming for chicken. Sometimes I smell the fryer oil when I'm trying to sleep. Sometimes I see Trent's face as he went back inside, chasing whatever secret he thought would save him. But nothing saved anyone. Not me, not Elias, not the people we served, not the ones who are still in rehab, trying to recover from an addiction they never asked for, and especially not the ones who didn't survive. I eat healthier now. No fast food, no greasy leftovers. But every time I close my eyes, I can still taste that first bite, the sweetness, the bitterness, the numbness. And I wonder, if I had swallowed instead of spitting it out, would I have ended up like them? Would I have clawed at someone's face for one more piece of fried chicken? I don't know, but I'll never forget what that spice did, what it turned people into, what it almost turned me into, what it took from all of us. Story 7, I never liked long drives, but that Wednesday I didn't have a choice. My parents had been calling me for weeks asking when I'd finally come visit them in Lakeford, Michigan. And after dodging enough conversations, I finally packed a small bag, filled my tank, and started the 5-hour drive from Hammond, Indiana. The highway was open, just long stretches of farmland and silos, and somehow that stillness messed with my brain. I'd been in a weird place lately, work stress, constant fights with my girlfriend, the feeling that life was moving without me. Driving always gave me too much time to think, too much time to wonder if I was failing or just stuck. By 2:17 p.m., hunger started twisting in my stomach. I hadn't eaten anything since breakfast, and the caffeine crash wasn't helping. I promised myself I'd stop only once, grab something fast, and get back on the road. That's when I saw it, a faded sign for KFC, exit 214, 0.3 miles. Good enough. I flicked my blinker and took the exit. The first thing I noticed when I pulled into the small gravel lot was how quiet everything felt. No other cars, no trucks, no music from inside. Just the rumble of my engine and a faint whistle of wind sliding across empty cornfields stretching endlessly behind the restaurant. The second thing I noticed was that the building itself looked tired, like it had given up years ago but still forced itself to stand. Still, my stomach didn't let me turn around. I got out, locked the door, and walked inside. The moment the door creaked open, I felt the emptiness. No customers, no chatter, no fryers hissing, no radio playing. Just a soft, lonely bell above the door. Then a voice. Afternoon, honey. Behind the counter stood an older woman, late 60s maybe, short, round shoulders, hair tied back neatly. She wore a KFC visor that had probably been washed 1,000 times. Her name tag read, Marlene. She smiled like someone who hadn't seen a customer, a friend, or maybe any living soul in far too long. Slow day? I asked. She gave a breathy laugh. Been slow for 20 years. What can I get started for you? Just a 6-piece nuggets and a Mountain Dew. Coming right up, sweetie. She punched it in, took my card, and handed me a receipt with slightly trembling fingers. You can have a seat. I'll holler when it's ready. Her voice was warm, but something in her eyes looked exhausted. Not physically, emotionally. like she was carrying something heavy behind that practiced Midwestern sweetness. I sat in a booth near the window. Storm clouds were swelling far out by the fields, crawling toward the highway like a dark tide. I hoped I'd be gone before they hit. I tapped my foot, checked my texts, nothing from my girlfriend, and tried not to overthink every problem in my life. That's when I heard the engine, a long, deep purr, too smooth to be a normal car. I turned my head toward the window. A white stretch limousine rolled slowly into the parking lot. I frowned. A limo? Out here? At an abandoned-looking KFC off a dead exit? It pulled right in front of the door, and for a second, everything went still. The engine cut off. The back door didn't open. The passenger door didn't open. Instead, the driver's door swung open, and a woman climbed out. She stepped down carefully, gripping the door frame, and the first thing I noticed was the dress. A wedding dress. Not clean, not sparkly, not new. The white fabric was wrinkled, gray in places, tangled around her shoes. The second thing I noticed was her makeup. Black mascara streaks trailed down her cheeks like melted paint. Her lipstick was smeared. Her eyes, wide, red, frantic, looked like they had run out of tears. She stood there breathing heavily, scanning the empty restaurant through the window until her gaze landed on me. My stomach tightened. She pushed through the door, the bell chiming sharply behind her. Her voice was soft, almost childlike. "Hi, can I sit with you?" My mind scrambled. What was I supposed to say? What would offend her? What would keep me safe? Sure, I managed. She sat across from me, folding her hands neatly on the table. She looked at me, studied me, almost like she was memorizing my face. Then she smiled. "I'm Riley," she said. "I'm Evan." "Evan?" She repeated it like she was tasting it. We sat in stillness for a few seconds. Then she asked quietly, "Do I look ugly?" "What?" "No, no, not at all. Really?" Her eyes glimmered strangely. "Someone told me I was beautiful today, but he lied." "I'm sorry," I said softly. Her fingers trembled. "Everyone lies, don't they?" I swallowed. "Not everyone." She leaned closer. "Are you attracted to me, Evan?" The question hit me like a cold bucket of water. My throat tightened. I think you're a very pretty woman, but You hesitated. She tilted her head. "Are you lying too?" "No," I said instinctively, even though I had no idea what she wanted to hear. She smiled, oddly. "Good." Her gloved hands rested on the table. That's when I noticed the fabric. The white silk was blotched with dark red stains. My stomach dropped. My voice came out barely a whisper. "Are you hurt?" "No," she said simply. "It's not my blood." My pulse hammered. Before I could respond, Marlene stepped out from the kitchen carrying my tray. She stopped dead when she saw Riley. "Well now," Marlene whispered. Riley didn't even turn around. She just stiffened. "Hello," Marlene said, trying to sound cheerful. "And what a dress, dear. You look—" "I wasn't talking to you," Riley snapped. Marlene's smile faltered. "All right, I'll just set this down." She placed the nuggets gently in front of me. "Enjoy, sweetie," she whispered to me, then hurried back into the kitchen. Riley watched her walk away, eyes narrowed, then turned back to me. "Come with me," she said. My blood ran cold. "What?" "You and me, right now. Let's go." She grabbed my wrist. Her grip was strong, too strong. "You're shaking," she whispered. "Why?" I just, I have a long drive." "You don't want to be with me." Her voice cracked. "You want to leave me like he did." "No, I swear," I said, panic tightening my chest. "I just need something from my car first. That's all." She stared into me, unblinking. "Okay," she murmured. "I'll walk with you." I moved toward the exit as calmly as I could, even holding the door open for her. Every instinct in my body screamed, "Run!" But her presence pressed against me like a blade. We stepped outside. The wind had picked up. Storm clouds rolled closer. She looped her arm through mine. "Don't pull away," she whispered. "It hurts my feelings." My jaw clenched as she guided me past the limo. That's when I saw it. The front grille was crushed inward, smeared with dark, dried blood. Something was stuck in the metal, a torn shred of black fabric. I felt bile rise in my throat. She noticed me looking. "That's from Tyler," she said. "I... Who's Tyler?" "Our driver." Her voice was icy calm. "He tried to run, so I made him stop." I nodded stiffly, terrified of reacting wrong. She tugged me closer to the back door of the limo. "Do you want to meet Elliot?" she asked. "Who? Who's Elliot?" She smiled wide. "My groom." My body locked up. "He's waiting for me inside." Her voice trembled. "But he hasn't moved in a while." My pulse roared in my ears. I should get my phone from the car," I stammered. "Just wait right here." She didn't move. "Promise you'll come back." "I promise." She let go. I exhaled sharply, opened my car door, slid in, and hit the lock. But before it clicked, her hand clamped onto the door. Her face twisted. "You lied!" she screamed. She lunged. Her fist cracked across my cheek, sending my keys flying onto the floor. I scrambled, gasping, trying to reach them. She climbed halfway into the car, grabbing my throat with one gloved hand. "You're just like him!" she shrieked. "Just like Elliot!" Her nails dug into my skin. I couldn't breathe. My vision flickered. Then, boom, a deafening blast shook the air. Riley's eyes widened. Her grip loosened. She slumped forward, collapsing halfway across my lap, blood blooming across the back of her dress. Her body slid out of the car and hit the gravel with a dull thud. I choked for breath, clutching my neck. Slow footsteps approached. I looked up. Marlene stood there holding a 12-gauge shotgun, her hands trembling. "You okay, honey?" she asked softly. I could only nod. She gave a sad, tired smile, the kind people wear when life has broken them too many times. "Come back inside," she said gently. "We need to call the sheriff." I stared at Riley's still body, then at the shattered quiet around us. "Yeah," I whispered, stumbling out of the car. As we walked back toward the empty restaurant, Marlene added softly, "And you still haven't eaten your nuggets."